On this issue, clearly. Here to talk about it, two former New York Times journalists who have written extensively about the Middle East and terrorism. Judith Miller was at the New York Times. We talked about her yesterday. She's the one who got the leak, the Cheney order. We talked about that, but she works for us now. She's a Fox News contributor. Then we've got Cliff May. He's president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a conservative-leaning think tank. Cliff, we're America. We don't torture, right?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of torture, but
Right.
all rough interrogation techniques do not amount to torture.
Well, the Obama administration says it does, of course. The Obama administration
that's where I
says
disagree.
waterboarding is torture.
I agree. And a hot poker through the eye, pulling your nails off with pliers, I'm not in favor of that. But you take somebody and you scare them, you put them in a confined space with a caterpillar, you push them up against a flexible wall. That was done with some kind of cushioning on their neck to prevent whiplash.
Have you read them?
Yeah, exactly. None of these things, I have read most of them,
about
about 170 pages. Yeah, those experiences scared these guys enough.
How was the experience of reading the memos?
Well, actually, I thought I was amazed at how much was done to prevent torture, to not go over the line ethically, morally, legally, from harsh and coercive interrogation to torture, including having physicians and psychologists and others on hand.
Judith Miller, you read them. How was the experience?
I'm only about 2/3 of the way through them, and I'm having trouble getting all the way through them because, Shep, I've got to tell you, as Judge Napolitano says,
you need to read them.
Absolutely. You know it when you see it. Enhanced interrogation techniques. It's Orwellian. It's Orwellian for torture. It's waterboarding somebody 183 times. Israel, by the way, which knows a little something about dealing with terrorists in ticking bomb situations, outlawed waterboarding a long time ago.
Of course, we know the problem is. We know what this is, though, Cliff. This isn't about what's torture. What this is about is a series of dots which people are now mentally connecting in a backward fashion. If there was torture, that's a crime. If there was crime, there were criminals. Who ordered the torture? That's the problem. It's political, and the right is going, get away from George Bush and his administration. It's over. Remember, look forward. Remember, look forward. And the other side's going, this is torture. That's where we are, isn't it? It's that simple, isn't it?
I'm afraid that there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. It makes no sense whatsoever to prosecute people for their opinions. Look, if you're going to talk about torture, you have to define torture. I think it should be clear that these guys are not criminal defendants who have the right to remain silent. They're not prisoners of war who only disclose their name, rank, and serial number. Why not do it the smart way? And the smart way is decide what techniques are effective and then which of those techniques are torture and which are less than torture but coercive nonetheless.
Judith, the argument here is that from the other side is that they got lawyers to come in and give a definition of what they think it is, just like I can get my lawyer to give me any definition I want because I pay him $400 an hour, so he does it.
Exactly. The issue here is we don't know enough to know as yet who ordered what, at what point, under what circumstances. We're not making a decision right now about whether or not anybody should be prosecuted. What we're saying is we need to know what happened and how these horrendous techniques, which are illegal under American law, never mind the International Convention Against Torture, never mind our basic human standards, never mind that John McCain introduced legislation outlawing these
John
very
McCain,
techniques.
who was tortured himself.
Exactly. So what we need right now, wait a minute, Cliff. Cliff, I have to disagree with you. What we need right now is more information about who, how, when, what this system came about, who's responsible for it, whether or not there were extenuating circumstances. We need to let the government do its job, and we need information.
We don't torture, and the moment that is not the case, I want off the train. This government is of, by, and for the people.
Look,
that means it's mine. That means they I'm not saying what is torture and what is not torture, but I'm saying whatever it is, you don't do it for me. I want off the train when the government starts. I want off. Next stop now.
Shep, I'm not in favor of torture, but all rough techniques are not torture. The American standard, Judy, give me a chance. Judy, my dear, give me a chance.
You've said this before. We heard you, and you're saying that these things that we've already done aren't torture.
I'm not saying.
And I'm not saying whether they are or not.
What I'm about to say is that the American standard is that which shocks the conscience. Now, you tell me which would shock your conscience more, pushing a guy and giving him a scare in order to get him to tell about a terrorist plot, or letting him go back to his cell and having a terrorist plot kill hundreds or maybe thousands of Americans. My conscience would be shocked by not using coercive methods short of torture in order to get the information we need to save American lives.
John McCain says it doesn't
work. That's my conscience.
That's right. John McCain says this is not about them. This is about us. who we are.
They were using torture on John McCain to coerce a false confession. We're not talking about torture for confessions. We're not talking about it for punishment or revenge. We're talking about it to get information to save American lives.
You know,
that should
Chris,
be a priority.
I want you to read Philip Zelikows' blog on foreign policy. He was the executive director of the 9/11 Commission. He was Condi Rice's advisor. Read what he says about issuing a dissenting opinion to these techniques in 2005, and having every copy of his memo confiscated
Judy,
at the orders of the White House. And then we're going to talk about what happened. We need information about what happened here.
Judy, fine, information. Is putting somebody in a small confinement with a caterpillar torturing their mind?
It is the combination of all of these things that were done.
Are there no techniques we can use other than...
That's not the
Judy,
issue.
Are there no
it's the combination
Judy,
of
no,
these
this
techniques,
is the issue.
torture. I think a reasonable person would say,
Judy,
yes, it is. Cliff, I don't want to put you in a box and tell you it's okay to put an insect in there as long as I tell you it's not going to sting you to death. Come on,
and
that's
if I have
torture.
information... If I have information about a terrorist act, do it to me. Absolutely do it to me.
The stage manager is counting me down. Cougar rights. And I'm not going to give you your real address. Shep, you are such a pompous ass. That's the I'm a pompous. I'm that because I'm an American and I don't want my government torturing on my behalf. I'm not defining it, but I'm telling you they better not do it. This is of, by, and for us. And if we're going to be Ronald Reagan shining city on a hill, we don't get to torture. We don't do it.